again, I'm Herbert, and today I will be reading creepypastas while doing my makeup. In 6 minutes. Don't ignore the motion sensors. Okay. Don't ignore the motion sensors. August 15th, 2022. Is this psychological horror? Which I love psychological horror. That's apparently 6 minutes. It was written by Sam Gallenberger. Okay. Things have been tough ever since Mom passed. Dad's a complete shell of himself, and I've been left on my own to sort through the abundance of emotions I'm going through. It was actually a relief when Dad told me he was going to head to the cabin for the week. "Can you watch the place for me, Jared?" he had asked. Yeah, I had to watch the house, but that's not a big deal. It's a 2-story house with AC, a stocked fridge, a big screen, and a hot tub. It's not like I'd struggle to get by. Although this place does still have landlines for some reason. I mean, that's not too bad, though. Like, landlines, whatever. You know? I think they're kind of cool. I wonder if they're functioning. Before he left, Dad told me reception would be spotty at the cabin per usual. If I really needed anything, I should call between 9 and 11 when he'd be out at a local bar. I told him not to worry about anything, and I highly doubted I would need him. If I couldn't reach him, I should call Terry next door if I needed anything. It didn't take long before I needed him. I was soaking in the hot tub when lights in the backyard turned on. The lights back there, motion sensors. Silly me, I forgot to set the security system. What was the code again? As things stood, the alarm wouldn't go off if someone broke in. Thankfully, that animal or whatever had triggered the motion sensors and reminded me. I'll call Dad and ask for the code. It's getting close to 11 p.m., so if I wanted to catch Dad, I need to call him quick. My fingers scrolled until I saw the D's in my contacts. I hit call. It began to ring. Suddenly, landline read Jared's cell. I looked back at my cell. I dialed Dad home, not Dad's cell. Silly me. I moved my finger to the red phone icon, but before I could push it, the landline stopped ringing. I hadn't hung up yet. Had gone to voicemail? Confused, I raised my cell to my ear. No voicemail, just only silence. Actually, I think I do hear something. Is that static or breathing? What the heck? My heart was pounding. I immediately hung up the phone. What the heck was that about? Taking in a few deep breaths, my heart rate began to slow. There's no way I heard breathing. That would be ridiculous. It had to be the phone malfunctioning or something. I inhaled deeply, then began to laugh. What a way to start off my week alone. My cell began to ring. The ring caused my body to flinch. Clearly still a little jittery. Who would be calling at this hour anyway? Looking at my phone, the call was from Dad. Home. My eyes widened. The phone continued to ring in my hands. In a panic, I hit decline. The backyard was illuminated by light once again. This is all happening so fast. Before I could react to the lights, my phone started ringing again. Dad home was calling. Tears began to well up my eyes, and I hit answer. Hello? I asked. There was no verbal response. But there was something else. A slow inhale followed by a slow exhale. My chest tightened. Hello? I repeated myself. More breathing returned. Keeping the phone to my ear, I began moving towards the kitchen. Once there, I grabbed a large kitchen knife. I ducked behind the island. The breathing on the other line hadn't ceased. I peeked my head out to survey my surroundings. The open and spacious nature of Dad's home came in handy here. The kitchen was about 15 times 15, and with the island directly in the center and the edge of the house. Peeking around the corner allowed me to see the entirety of the living room. It was a large, wide space directly in front of me. I leaned to the other side of the island to peek in the other direction. There were doors for a theater room, bathroom, and office. Down a little further was a little opening to the left. If you went in there, you'd see the front door and both flights of stairs. The office had 2 ways of getting in, one clearly visible from the kitchen and one around the corner in that opening. There were 4 landlines in that house. The one in the kitchen, the one in the office, one upstairs, and one in the basement. Rolling out the kitchen meant this person could only be in 3 of those places. I sat there behind the island. My body couldn't stop shaking. I set down my phone and I held the knife in both hands. If someone was here and coming for me, I was going to need more than a knife. I knew Dad kept a gun in his office safe. I peeked around the corner again. The theater room, bathroom, and office doors were all slightly creaked open. Frick! If I was going to protect myself, I needed to risk it. I inhaled deeply. As soon as I began my exhale, I shot to my feet and tiptoed through the office. Each step creaked slightly and was only sound that could be discerned. Reaching the door, I wanted to pause for fear of what might be inside. I pointed the knife into the crease with my clammy hands and gently opened the door. The only light in the room came from the opening. Gently, I closed the door behind me and left it creaked open slightly as it had been before. Crawling under Dad's desk, I reached for his safe. It wasn't there. Why wasn't it there? Where could it? Oh no. Before he left, Dad told me he'd move his safe to his basement. The walkout basement. With a door I'm almost certain I had forgotten to lock. Also, where another one of the landlines were. Then I heard movement. Someone was here. I saw the knife so no light would reflect and curled into a ball. Outside the office, I could hear the faint sound of footsteps. Then the sound of a door swinging open. That was the theater room. Moments later, I heard a thud. Another door is flung open, this one closer. The bathroom. That was followed by another thud. That meant the office was next. Do I keep hiding or do I make a run for it? I decided to run. The sound nearing the office grew in intensity. I shot through the office door and exited the office, and ducking around the corner, the other door to the office opened, and then there was silence. I held my breath, waiting for someone. Something, anything to happen. Seconds keep passing by. Everything was still. Please, 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 slam the door so I can run. Still no sound. I could feel little beads of sweat run down my forehead. Finally, I heard the other door slam shut and used that noise as a disguise. Finally, I heard the other door slam shut and used that noise to disguise my run to the stairs. Knowing where the intruder was, I lessened my apprehension of going downstairs. I maintained quiet feet, but quickly maneuvered down the steps. As I reached the bottom, I saw that the walkout door was wide open. I didn't have time to worry about such things. Darting towards the back, I found the safe. I punched in the code. Wrong code. The safe beeped. I heard movement upstairs. You've got to be kidding me. What's the code? I punched it again. Wrong code. I could hear more sound upstairs. Whatever was up there was being much louder than before. Frantically, I attempted it one more time. If this doesn't work, I'd have to make a run for it. The swing door swung open. The safe door swung open. I grabbed the gun. I hid. While hiding, I turned the safety off, then checked to see if it was loaded. Thankfully, it was. The creaking of floorboards could be heard overhead. Each sound grew nearer to the top of the steps. I closed my eyes and tried to focus, steadying the gun. I aimed where the intruder would be in my line of sight on the stairs. The sounds grew increasingly louder. A figure appeared at the top of the stairs. Even in the dark, I could make out his all-black outfit and ski mask. One arm was raised. It looked like they were casually massaging their neck. The figure hobbled awkwardly. Each step looked more off balance than the rest. I walked until they reached the easiest spot for me to aim. I fired the gun. A brief moment passed, and the body came tumbling down the remaining stairs. Flicking on the lights, I kept my distance. Gun pointed at the intruder. Red stains soaked the area beneath the man's body. Kicking at him a few times, there was no reaction from his limp body. Curiosity got the best of me, and I decided to flip the man over. He was bleeding immensely from his neck. Removing the ski mask, I immediately became confused. This person was a complete stranger to me. Why would they break into my home? What was the purpose in doing so? And what was with the wound on their neck? I'd fired the gun at this man. Yet his wound wasn't a bullet hole. Looked like he had been slashed. Looking over the stairs, there was a hole in the wall. Had I missed? Then how did... And then the landline began to ring. It read, Jared, sell. So, the creepypasta I will be reading is titled The Lover's Tree. It was released August 9th, 2021, and written by Atlas Fitzgerald. I've never actually read this before, so this is kind of like a surprise thing for me. But yeah. And I'll be like doing my makeup while reading it, which probably won't turn out well, but whatever. So, I recently moved to the Yorkshire Dales with my rescue dog Splash, so named for his love of puddles. And this summer past, we had ambled through the woodland on long walks on the weekend. He would always dart ahead, rustling through the leaf litter for insects or fallen branches, while I meandered behind, taking photos to share with my friends back in the city. We had traversed this particular patch of wood before, but never before had I seen the white elm, knotted and lifeless. It towered over the bracken like a rotten hand. It was Splash who found it, and he sniffed around the roots as I caught up, my camera a heavy weight around my neck. So this is like really interesting. So far, it's like this guy and his dog, and he's like exploring, and he finds this tree. Interesting stuff. The tree was tall and somewhat misplaced among the lush greenery of the wood. I noticed in my approach that the trunk was heavily scarred, and moving closer, still saw that the scars were man-made. Names and dates: Lou G. plus Paul, 1992. Niall and Lee, 1977. Mary K. and Roy L., 1954. Ooh! See, that's why it's called Lover's Tree. Ooh, maybe it's like, okay, I'm gonna do like a prediction. What if it's like a thing where like this guy uses like different alter ego names to like bring ladies to a tree and then like kills them or something? Oh gosh. I really hope I didn't just spoil the whole thing for myself. That would be slightly sad to me. Like actually being right. Okay. So, I ran my fingers over the crudely scratched names with a sense of borrowed nostalgia. I imagined generations of young couples meeting in this apparent beauty spot that I never even knew existed. That's actually kind of sweet, you know, like bittersweet. Because, like, are they still around now? Are they, like, still alive, you know? Like, 1977. 1954, dude. That was a very long time ago. Kind of like, you know, it's interesting to think about. I imagine okay. The names stretched back decades, and the oldest I could find, now faint, barely legible, near the detritus, was over 100 years old. Adel and Ira, 1883. I began to snap away, circling the wide trunk while Splash zigzagged in and out of my legs. Splash is like the dog, by the way. A deep hollow cut into the tree on the opposite side. As I leaned in with my camera, and my heart stopped. I dropped the camera and squinted at the names etched on the ridge of the hole. Lubella Fitzroy plus John McSee, 1984. Ooh, okay. Someone's a memory of a time or place or person hooks onto your mind like a barb, and you can go through your whole life never calling it, but there it remains, and all it takes for the barb to be pulled is a familiar image or an overhead word or a name carved into a tree. This is how it was for me when I saw the name of my Aunt Belle and her then boyfriend John McLean, who had died in a car crash in Canada in the early 80s back when I was just a boy. That's sad. Okay, that's sad. So this probably isn't gonna be like a murder thing. It's like whoever etches their name dies badly. That's really sad though. This is like a lot sadder than I was expecting. I never really known Belle. In tracing my memories, I'm bringing forth a face, but whatever belonged to her, but but whatever it belonged, but whether it belonged to her or was just a composite of my own creation, I could not say. Belle was my aunt on my father's side, the Canadian side of the family. My father met my mother, native to these shores, while she was traveling through North America in the 1970s. And eventually they moved back to England where they raised a family. What left me feeling at odds, there by the Wych Elm, was that father's siblings and parents rarely visited the UK. As far as I know, Belle never left Toronto. And yet, here is her name carved into a tree in the heart of the Dales. In a strange way, I was morbidly excited. My mother and father moved from Toronto to London, where they raised my brother and sister and I. It seemed that Belle had visited us when I would have been 3 years old, and by chance she had happened to travel part of the country in which I now lived. It was an incredible coincidence. I rushed home and gave Splash a bath, and once I had cleaned a mud splatter from the bathroom tiles, I called my mom and asked her about it. "Oh, I haven't heard that name in a while," she said. When I told her my discovery, "But that can't be her. Belle never came to the UK. The only time you two met was when we spent Christmas there in what was it, 1982 or 1981? When you were only 2 or 3, I think. How old are you again?" Mother doesn't even know her own son's name. But maybe this is like because she's trying to stop from talking about it. Maybe she knows what happened to her. She rambled on that way, and I tried to veer the conversation back, but each time she dismissed it. But how many Lubella Fitzroys could there be? Let alone one who courted someone by the name of John McSee. I finished up the conversation and said about retouching the photographs I've taken, each time flicking back to the shot of Belle's name. I waited until later in the evening, all while Googling time in Toronto, till I felt confident that he had put my grandma to bed. Working through the usual pleasantries, the how are yous and what's the weather like, I told him about my discovery. The line went silent. "Where's this tree?" he asked at last. I told him, or I began to, as before I could finish, he interjected. "Cut it down." "What? I can't just cut down trees in National Park, Dad. Just cut it down right now." "What's wrong? Did Belle visit then? It's pretty remarkable that they never left Toronto. Please cut it down for me," he urged, and I sensed the panic in his voice. I promised I would, right away as he suggested. And hearing how troubled the topic made him, I decided not to push matters. I missed call and went back to bed. Although I did not sleep, thoughts of this Wych Elm swarmed in my mind. Of Belle and John carving their names into the tree. Tragic young lovers carving their names into history in the year they would be taken from us. They never left Toronto. Those words, my father's fearful tone. How could that be? Every evening after work, after taking Slash home from his walks, I set about researching. I called my brother my sister. Neither knew, and neither seemed really to care. I contacted other relatives in Canada through Facebook, and all were convinced that Belle had never left Canada. I became obsessed with this mystery, and yet ran into deep ends until I received a message from someone I did not know. "Have you found the Wych Elm?" Okay, so I'm gonna stop this right here. Say my next prediction. Maybe it was okay. So considering the fact that the father and the mother seem like they have known what happened, maybe the car accident, they hired someone to do it, or purposely tried killing them for insurance money or something. And because that's also where they live, is near the elk, and that's why they were trying, the mother is trying to change the subject, and the father is telling him to tear it down, because that would have been proof. But I could be so wrong. I was taken aback, my heart racing. I immediately accepted the message request and looked through the profile. It was an older woman, Joy Martin, who looked to be in her 50s, who was a mutual friend of a cousin I had contacted earlier. Yes, I found a tree with my aunt's name carved in it in the woods near I live. I waited. "Cut it down." I stared at my screen, tired and lost down to a rabbit hole of my own making. "What do you mean? My dad told me to do the same thing, but I can't just go cutting down trees. Do you know Belle?" I waited. No response. After 30 minutes of refreshing Messenger, I was interrupted by Splash, who stood at my office door with his leash dangling out of his mouth. I was somewhat glad to get out of the house, and together we walked through the village. I did not go to the woods. Thinking of walking that way made me feel uneasy. Fair, I would have been terrified. When I returned home, I saw a new message from Joy. I knew Belle, yes. We went to high school together. John was a bit older. We never liked him much. There's a rumor, one of those urban legend things, about a tree that just appears sometimes. Legend says that if you're going around with a boy or girl and carve your name into the tree, that it will test your love. If you both love the other, then nothing will happen. But if your love is not true, then you will die a horrible death. We thought it was a bunch of baloney, of course, and then Belle goes on and says they found the thing. Well, being a curious bunch, we went on with them, and there it was, right out in the farmer's field. They go on and cut their names into the thing, and sure enough, a week later, they were dead. A drunk driver going the wrong way on the highway, if I remember right. A bunch of us decided to go back to the tree to make a mural out of it to them both. When we got there, it was gone. Just vanished. I know it sounds silly, but it's troubled me ever since. Please cut it down. Trees simply don't appear and disappear, and more than anything, they certainly don't claim the lives of young couples. Trees simply don't appear and disappear. More than anything, they certainly don't claim the lives of young couples. It was absurd. I replied with thanks and promised that, yes, I will cut down the tree. And yet the image of the wych elm haunted me, bored in my mind and left me feeling cold. I googled the names from the photos each time coming up short until I searched for Mary K and Roy L. A search result appeared from one of those ancestry sites with an archived news story of one Mary Kilkelly and Roy Launchbury of Cork, Ireland, who had died in a house fire in 1954. It couldn't be true. It couldn't be true. I plodded on, searching name after name, and then more stories appeared of young couples dying by way of drowning, of suicide, of murder. I started searching for wych elm urban legends, tree urban legends, anything I could. At last, I found a link to an old angel fire site, now defunct. I pasted the link to the Wayback Machine and found an archived page from the late 90s. The page was crudely put together. One of those old counters had bombs showing 127 visitors. The header in garish green font and black starry background read, "The Lover's Tree." It told of a tree in New England in which young couples carved their names to test the strength of their love. So said the anonymous writer. The tree was supposedly haunted by Hattie James, a young woman who had fallen in love with a local boy by the name of Ira Newton. Hattie's remains were found in the tree in the winter of 1888, and soon after, Ira was tried and executed for her murder. Hattie and Ira, 1883. I grabbed my coat and hurried out towards the woods. It was dark and I lost my bearings here or there. The susurration of the leaves, disturbed by the gathering wind, sounded like names whispering on the wind. Hattie, Ira, Belle. I struggled through the wood until at least I came to the clearing where once the wych elm stood, but stood no longer. This was the place. I was sure of it, but there was no longer a tree there, no roots, no hole in the ground, just leaf litter and bracken. I raced home and opened my laptop, awakened Slash with my clumsiness, and then barked and skittered about as though it was time for a walk. Not now, please. I opened the pictures on my computer. The tree was there. Its twisting branches seemed now more horrible than when I had last seen them, and the trunk was bare, no name scratched onto the surface. I clicked through, unbelieving. To my horror, there were only close-up shots of plain, decaying bark. I clicked on the picture that I had taken of Belle's name carved onto the edge of the hollow. Her name was not there. I sat back in my chair, my mind swimming, and then it caught my eye. I leaned closer, brightened the image, increased the saturation, played around with levels, but it was still just too dark. Just out of focus. I'm sure that there, from within the hollow on the very edge of the image, were fingers reaching out from the dark.